Have you ever dreamed of doing something so daring, so audacious, that it would secure your fame and fortune forever? Well, meet Edson Taylor, a woman who had that exact dream and decided to chase it by going over Niagara Falls in a barrel. But her story is so much more than just that one incredible stunt. It's a tale of resilience, ambition, and a life that was anything but ordinary, long before she ever saw the mighty falls. Annie was born way back in 1838 in Auburn, New York. Growing up, she wasn't a daredevil. She was actually quite prim and proper. She became a schoolteacher, which was a respectable profession for a woman at the time. She got married and had a child, but sadly, her son died in infancy, and her husband died shortly after during the Civil War. Suddenly, Annie was a young widow, left to fend for herself in a world that wasn't always kind to single women. But Annie was a survivor. She refused to just fade into the background. For the next few decades, she drifted from town to town, trying to make a living. She was a true entrepreneur of her time. She taught music, opened a dance school in Bay City, Michigan, and even tried her hand at teaching in San Antonio, Texas. She even traveled to Mexico City with a friend, hoping to find work, but came back to the States. She was always on the move, always looking for that one big break, that one idea that would finally give her the financial security she craved. Life was a constant struggle. She would save up some money, only to have it dwindle away again. By the time she reached her early 60s, she was living in Bay City, Michigan, feeling the pinch of poverty and the fear of ending up in the poorhouse. The 20th century had just begun, and the world was buzzing with excitement about new inventions and incredible feats. Annie read newspapers filled with stories of daredevils and adventurers, and a radical idea started to form in her mind. She needed to do something spectacular, something no one had ever done before. She looked at Niagara Falls, a place that had claimed the lives of many who had tried to conquer it. But where others saw death, Annie saw an opportunity. She decided she would be the first person to go over the Horseshoe Falls in a barrel and survive. She believed this feat would bring her instant fame and, more importantly, a steady income for the rest of her days. Now, this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. Annie was meticulous. She designed her own barrel. It wasn't just any old wooden cask. It was a custom-made barrel of white oak, held together with iron hoops. Inside, it was padded with mattresses to cushion the blow. There was even a 200-pound anvil in the bottom to act as ballast, to make sure it would hopefully stay upright as it went over the falls. She called her invention the Queen of the Mist. To make sure her contraption was sound, she did a test run. A few days before her own attempt, she sent the barrel over the falls with a cat inside. Now, I know what you're thinking, and don't worry, the story goes that the cat, despite being a bit dazed, survived the plunge with only a minor head injury. With the successful test, Annie knew it was time. The big day was October 24th, 1901. It also happened to be her 63rd birthday, though she told everyone she was in her 40s to seem more marketable. A crowd gathered to watch this woman, who many thought was completely mad, attempt the impossible. She climbed into her barrel, the lid was sealed, and air was pumped inside with a bicycle pump. For the next 20 minutes, Annie was tossed and turned by the violent rapids. She later described it as being spun around in a giant vortex. Then came the moment of truth, the plunge. The barrel disappeared over the edge of the Horseshoe Falls, dropping 167 feet into the churning water below. The crowd held its breath. Rescuers rushed to find the barrel. When they finally snagged it and pulled it to shore, they were almost afraid to open it. But when they did, out came Edson Taylor, alive. She was a bit battered and bruised, with a gash on her head, but she had done it. She was the first person to conquer Niagara Falls in a barrel. Her first words to the crowd were, "I would sooner walk up to the mouth of a cannon, knowing it was going to blow me to pieces, than make another trip over the falls." The experience had been far more terrifying than she could have ever imagined. Initially, it seemed like her plan had worked. She was an instant celebrity. Newspapers around the world ran her story. She was the heroine of Niagara Falls. She hired a manager, Frank M. Russell, and hoped the money would start rolling in. She posed for photos with her barrel, gave talks, and sold souvenirs. But the fame and fortune she dreamed of never truly materialized. It was a fleeting and frustrating chapter of her life. Her manager, Russell, proved to be untrustworthy. He took her famous barrel, the Queen of the Mist, and went on tour with a much younger woman, pretending she was the one who went over the falls. Annie had to spend a significant amount of her earnings on private detectives just to track down her own barrel. She tried to make a living from her fame, but it was a constant struggle. She'd set up a souvenir stand near the falls, selling postcards of herself, but she was often chased away by police. She tried to write a memoir, reenact her stunt in a movie, and even considered performing other daredevil acts, but nothing ever brought her the wealth she expected. The public's attention was fickle, and they soon moved on to the next big sensation. For the next 20 years, Annie lived in relative obscurity and poverty. The woman who had risked everything for financial security spent her final years posing for tourists and selling her story for whatever she could get. She passed away in 1921 at the age of 82 and was buried in the stunter section of Oakwood Cemetery in Niagara Falls, New York, not far from the waterfall that had defined her life. So, was it all worth it? It's hard to say. Annie Edson Taylor didn't get the riches she dreamed of, but she did secure her place in history. She was a woman ahead of her time, a bold, determined, and incredibly brave individual who refused to accept the hand fate had dealt her. Her story is a powerful reminder that sometimes the pursuit of a dream is just as important as the outcome. She wanted to be remembered, and in that, she absolutely succeeded. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the past, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about incredible people from history.